What if the reason you're exhausted isn't because you're doing too much, but because you're doing what was never meant to be yours to carry? Stay with me until the end of this video, because we're going to expose why being capable became your survival strategy and how it quietly turned into a cage. If you're the one people rely on, the one who steps in when things fall apart, the one who just handles it, this isn't a personality trait. It's an archetype. And once you see it, you'll never unsee it. Because the overfunctioner doesn't lack power, she leaks it. Let's talk about the overfunctioner. Why being capable isn't the same as being free. What if being capable isn't your superpower, but your constraint? The overfunctioner is the woman who sees what needs to be done and does it before anyone asks. She leads, fixes, manages, anticipates. And at some point, this ability stopped being a choice and became an expectation. Not because she wanted control, but because control once meant safety. Overfunctioning forms when you learn early that things fall apart unless you hold them together. So you do, again and again, until being capable becomes non-negotiable. The problem isn't that you can handle a lot. The problem is that you're no longer choosing what you carry. Power without choice isn't empowerment, it's obligation. What are you carrying right now that you never actually chose? Comment below. The identity cost of always being the strong one. What is overfunctioning really costing you? Not time, not energy. Identity. When you're always the strong one, people stop seeing you as someone who needs support, and eventually you stop seeing yourself that way too. So your needs become negotiable, delayed, minimized. This is how women end up effective but unfulfilled, respected but unseen, successful but disconnected. The overfunctioner doesn't need to become softer. She needs to become selective. Strength without self-consideration is not power. It's self-erasure. Where have you stopped advocating for your own needs? Comment below. Why letting others struggle feels so hard. Why does letting others struggle feel harder than overextending yourself? Because you learned early that if you didn't step in, things didn't get done, or didn't feel safe. So you intervene, you preempt, you absorb the impact. But here's the truth. When you always step in, others never step up. And when you always carry the weight, you train people to expect it. Letting others struggle isn't abandonment, it's redistribution. And redistribution is how systems rebalance. You don't need to rescue, you need to release. Who are you overfunctioning for right now? Comment below. The difference between leadership and obligation. What if what you call leadership is actually obligation? True leadership comes from choice. Obligation comes from fear of what happens if you don't step in. The overfunctioner leads reactively. She moves before being asked. She carries what's not assigned. Leadership rooted in obligation creates burnout. Leadership rooted in choice creates sustainability. You don't lose your authority by stepping back. You reclaim it. Where are you leading out of obligation instead of choice? Comment below. Why overfunctioning kills desire. Why does overfunctioning drain your sense of desire? Because desire requires space, and when you're always carrying, there's no room to want. You're too busy maintaining to imagine, too responsible to explore, too needed to wander. This is why overfunctioners feel disconnected from joy, not because they're broken, but because they're overloaded. Desire doesn't disappear, it gets buried. What have you stopped wanting because you've been too busy holding things together? Comment below. The moment you stop automatically stepping in. What happens when you pause before stepping in? Discomfort, silence, uncertainty, and then recalibration. The moment you stop overfunctioning, Systems adjust. People adapt. New dynamics emerge. It doesn't collapse. It reorganizes. And in that space, something powerful returns. Choice. You don't have to withdraw. You just have to wait. Where could you pause instead of automatically stepping in? Comment below. Why overfunctioners struggle with boundaries. Why do boundaries feel so unnatural to you? Because boundaries require letting others experience discomfort, and you were trained to prevent that. But boundaries aren't rejection, they're definition. They clarify where you end and others begin. The overfunctioner doesn't need harder boundaries. She needs earlier ones, before resentment, before depletion, before disconnection. What boundary do you know you need but haven't set yet? Comment below. The evolution of the overfunctioner. What if the goal isn't to stop being capable, but to stop being obligated? The evolution of the overfunctioner isn't collapse, it's sovereignty. She learns to ask, is this mine to carry? Did I choose this? What happens if I don't intervene? She doesn't lose her strength. She reclaims her agency. What would change if responsibility became a choice again? Comment below. You were never meant to carry everything. What if you were never meant to carry everything? What if your strength was meant to serve your life, not consume it? You don't need to do less to be worthy. You don't need to prove how much you can handle. You need alignment. And alignment begins when you stop carrying what isn't yours. What are you ready to put down? Comment below. So let me ask you this. What would change if you stopped proving how much you can handle and started choosing what you want to carry? The overfunctioner isn't broken. She's overcommitted. You don't need to become less powerful. You need to become more intentional. If this resonated, comment below with one thing you're done carrying. Please comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and keep living life limitlessly.